Thank you for joining today's call, Implementing and Certifying to ISO 20000-1 International Standard. This is a regular webinar and a series of webinars that we present every month on various topics and making free available to the public. Today's webinar is being presented by Shola Oduko. He's a senior consultant with Procept Associates Limited and is actually our practice lead for IT service management. He's also the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Procept Associates in Nigeria. Shola has extensive consulting and training experience in service management, project management, business analysis, and business continuity management. As a leading service management practitioner, Shola has over 15 years of comprehensive experience managing the design and implementation of IT service management processes. Also, he's responsible for the assessment, design, and implementation of service management processes, as well as software selection implementation of service management software. He was the first to introduce ITIL to West Africa. He's got quite a history of working in that region and introducing a lot of these concepts, and his experience is unequaled in the area. Holder of many important qualifications, he's both a bachelor and master's degrees in computer science, a second master's degree in business administration, and he's currently a doctoral student at the University of Alberta in Canada. In addition to his academic qualifications, he has the following professional designations: ITIL expert, ISO 20000 practitioner and auditor, ISO 27001 lead implementer, project management professional, certified business analysis professional, COBIT 5 Foundation, Business Continuity Management Practitioner, and Prince 2 Practitioner. He's a member of many professional organizations, and I'm very excited to welcome him today to this presentation. Shola, please do your best. Take it away.
Thank you, Kevin. So, good day. So, here the things this webinar will cover. I will touch on the overview of the Information Technology Infrastructure Library, overview of the service lifecycle, implementing IT service management based on ITIL framework, and then I will also present an overview of ISO 20000, pretty much discussing the contents of ISO 20000, and then we'll take you through the process of certifying to ISO 20000-1, including the procedure. And then I'll give you the opportunity to ask your questions. So anytime you have any questions, please feel free to put them in your chat window. And then by the end of the webinar, that's within 15 minutes before the end of the webinar, we'll take questions and answers at that time. So let's begin. So these are the contents of the presentation of the webinar. So I said ITIL overview, the service lifecycle, implementing IT service management, through to question and answers. So ITIL overview. So what is ITIL? ITIL pretty much stands for Information Technology Infrastructure Library. It's a set of best practice or guidance for service management. Basically, it's a set of publications that allow us to deliver services to both internal and external customers. It was developed by the UK government, now currently owned by Arcelor in a joint venture with the Cabinet Office in UK. So in terms of background for ITIL, ITIL started a long time ago. The UK government needed to hold the public sector IT departments accountable for investments in their IT spend. And so one of the things they did then, back in late 80s, was to invite authors to create documents that could be used to manage IT services, the delivery of IT services. So at that time, over about 40 books were created between 1986 to 1999. And so that was called version 1 of the ITIL framework. And then around 1999, or between 1998 and 1999, the thought of condensing these 40 books came. And so the UK government again decided to institute a project whereby those 40 books could be condensed into something manageable. So this is where they were condensed to about 10 books. 2 of these books included service support and service delivery books, and those were the books that IT departments used to implement service management in those days. And these books were used between 2001 and 2006. But as things were evolving in IT, the books really did not address the needs of changing IT needs and the customer needs. And so the thought of now rethinking how IT should work came, and the UK government again established a program in late 2004, and the program was actually chaired by one of our Canadian experts. It was the program manager for that program, and the program sought different support from ITIL experts all over the world, ITIL practitioners all over the world, ITIL companies all over the world, and sought also reviews by different people that were using ITIL. And so this was done internationally, and by May 31st, 2007, a set of 5 books were launched, and it was called Service Lifecycle. So in version 2 of the ITIL framework, the focus was on processes. So we had things like service support processes, service delivery processes, or service asset management, and so on and so forth. In version 3, however, the concept was that we needed to understand that a service has a life. There's a time the service will be created, and after created, it will be used until it could be archived. The process of doing all this is what is called service lifecycle. So one of the things I'm going to do is speak to this service lifecycle later on in my presentation. And so what do we then, why do we then have 2011 also in that role? Oh, the 2011 came because in 2009, the thought now came that we needed to review the 5 publications, or to just for consistencies, to look at formatting, look at grammar, look at all the things that soft things that could be amended. And these were amended, and in July 2011, ITIL version 2011 was created. So the concept of ITIL version 1, version 2, and version 3 is now becoming eradicated by now, because now the concept is now to use ITIL version 2011, and whatever set of ITIL publications that are coming out soon, it will be maybe version 2018, and then version 2023 or 25, and so on and so forth. So these are the publications in the service lifecycle in the ITIL library. There are 5 of them. There is a service strategy, there is service design, there is service transition, there is service operation, and there is continual service improvement lifecycle. I will touch on some of this as we go on. So the bodies that are supporting ITIL, as of today, include Axelos, that owns intellectual property and oversees the education and examination of ITIL worldwide. Axelos work with examination institutes Prior to this year, there were so many examination institutes all over the world. They include Aquarius that we use that are based in US. But from 2018, January 2018, Arcelors had done a public selection process whereby they've appointed one examination institute, PeopleSat, that will be used to govern or to administer ITIL education and certifications going forward as from January 1st, 2018. So, and there are accredited training organizations such as Procept, and these are companies that have been accredited to deliver ITIL training and to allow people to write certification exams worldwide. And then there is the ITIL Service Management Forum that promotes ITIL, and there are chapters almost worldwide, and several chapters in Canada and so on. So when we implement service management or implement ITIL, we're just creating or using the best practice guidance to support the delivery of services. Whereas, if we now want a situation whereby what we have created, there are certain requirements that they have to conform to, then we now need to make our ITIL implementation auditable. In order to do that, that's where we need to conform. We need to allow our implementation conform to ISO IEC 20000. And so an organization can then decide to become auditable and certified to ISO IEC. So at the ITIL level, only individuals can become certified. So you can have what we call ITIL Foundation certificate, ITIL Practitioner certificate, ITIL Intermediate certificate, ITIL managing across the life cycle before you become ITIL expert and ITIL masters. But when you now want your organization to be certified, you have to go for ISO 20000. So why is ITIL successful all over the world? It's because it's been vendor neutral. Since the mid-80s, ITIL is not based on any particular technology. It's not based on HP or Dell computers. It's not for any particular industry. It's not just for manufacturing or financial services. It's not for oil and gas or telecoms alone. It's for every industry. That's one of the reasons why ITIL is popular and ITIL is being used for service management. The other reason is that ITIL is non-prescriptive, meaning that it allows people to take the standard guidelines or framework and for them to adapt and adopt them to their own local situations. And that's what we mean by non-prescriptive. So ITIL does not say that thou shalt do this, which is one of the things that the ISO or 20000 specifies, or all the ISO standards specifies. The third thing is that ITIL, from the time it was created, from version 1, the message is that let's put it in the public domain and let people use them and provide feedback for learning. And so over time, ITIL has become a best practice framework for service management. There could be one or two other frameworks for service management, but what we know today is that ITIL is #1 worldwide. So let's quickly touch on the service lifecycle. So what we're saying is that what is the life of a service? Usually, for you to create a service, you start with identifying a business need. And once you've identified a business need, before you go into requirement specification, one of the things you have to do is determine the number of people that want that service. So for example, let's say that I am trying to create a service to allow people hold meetings, because in our organization we hold so many meetings and we need physical rooms to hold the meetings, and we have to bring people across the country, or for example across the country in Canada, to come and hold just one meeting. And so the investment in bringing people around could be enormous. So that could be a need for a service. So a need for a service is now identified. And the question is, how do we justify this need? So a business case will be prepared to confirm that if IT department should invest in the creation of this service, it will be justifiable. So I'm still talking about identifying a business need and justifying the need. At the end of this justification of the service, we'll then do what we'll charter the service. After chartering the service, the next thing we'll do is we'll start to gather requirements for the delivery of the service. So let's take the example of the service I want to create to allow people to hold meetings without the need of the meeting room. So let's assume it's video conferencing service. So for that, it means that just like what we're doing right now, it means that we'll try and ensure that we have a platform that people can dial into, and the instructor can talk, and they can actually listen and follow on with the meeting. And if there's a need for them to be able to raise their points, the instructor can pass control to them to be able to talk. So these are the things we'll gather in terms of requirements. We gather the requirements for what people must do with the system and how those things should be done. So be it data requirement, network requirement, application requirement, all the different things that have to be done, we gather those requirements. From that, we'll now start to put a blueprint together for the service. And once we put the blueprint, we start to indirectly build, after procuring whatever we need to build the service, to develop the service, that video conferencing service. In this case, if we are talking about video conferencing service, we will be developing web applications that would allow people to be able to connect to the video conferencing service on different platforms. One of the platforms can be laptops, desktops. It could be people's tablets. It could be people's phones. These are things that we will be building. And once we build that service, we'll now go through a phase of testing the service. And then we'll now take it to the production environment. And from the production environment, that is now when people can now start to use the service. That's what I call operate the service. From the beginning of the service lifecycle, the first time that the customers are able to use the service is at this step whereby they're able to operate. So once they start to operate and use the service, the need will now be to look at what is working and what is not working very well, and to identify learnings and improvements. And so this now enables us to determine whether this service is still useful, and so we continue to provide feedback, and it continues to go through the service lifecycle until the time comes whereby the service is no longer useful or relevant, and so the service can be retired within the company. So the question is, which of these publications support each of these service lifecycle stages? For example, the service strategy is the publication that allows us to identify services that we want to create and to justify those services and to prepare prepare the service charters that we want to create. And from that, we now have what we call service design, which basically takes care of requirement specification and the design of the service. And then we have what we call service transition, which supports the build, test, deploy, and retire of the service. And then we have service operation, which is primarily to support the use of the service in the production environment. And then the last service lifecycle phase is called the continual service improvement, which supports all the lifecycle phases for identifying improvement initiatives to support each of the activities of the service lifecycle. So that is the lifecycle of a service. So let's move on quickly to implementing service management. What do we do to implement service management? Pretty much when we need to implement service management, there are different things we need to do. One of the things we need to do is understand why do we need to implement service management. It could be that there is chaos within the organization whereby people send requests to IT and those requests are never attended to on a timely basis. It could also be that the business wants some solutions that IT is not delivering timely. So the need for implementing service management might then come from that. So we start by identifying or understanding business requirements. The next thing is we assess what is in place, what is on ground, because in most cases, every organization would have done one thing or the other. So for example, in a financial institution, sometimes you have one IT person in each branch trying to support the work of each branch. But after some time, they realize that that is not scalable and that is not a good model for providing support. And they might now start to bring that support into a centralized location until they might also get to the point whereby the feeling might be that, okay, maybe it's better for us to focus on our core job and then outsource the support of those services. So it could be, so one of the things we do is assess what is on ground, what has been done to date. The next thing we do is determine the strategy either for providing support or for understanding the needs of the business before we do other things. The next thing will be we need funding. We need to be able to prepare business case and justify the investment in service management to the organization. Once that is done, we agree on roles and responsibilities that we are going to use to support the implementation of service management. Define the scope, define policies, agree on processes that we want to bring in. So for example, most people want to implement at the very least incident management process, which is a process that is used to handle day-to-day issues. And later on, they might also want to implement a problem management process. So it is at the defined process stage that those processes will be defined, will be documented, metrics supporting them would also be documented. And each of these processes will be in scope for the service management system we are trying to implement. As we do this, we should not forget about communication and awareness. We need to ensure that we carry everybody along within the company to understand why are we doing this? What is the usefulness of introducing service management? How will it make the life of our the common user, how will it make their life better? So those are the things we need to communicate with everyone, all the users, as we implement service management across the organization. The next thing is we need to select and install tools. Now, there are so many so many, what's it called, support that we can get for selecting and installing tools. Now you have the Gartner that prepares what we call the Magic Quadrant that shows all the tools, where tools fit in the Magic Quadrant. And so you could even start from those recommendations by that Magic Quadrant. But if you have a lot of time on your hands, you could go through an entire RFP or request for proposal kind of selection process. Once that is done and you install the tools, you now start to define procedures for using the tool with the processes that we have developed. So for example, we've developed a process for receiving incidents. We now need to adapt the tool to support that process of anytime somebody calls, we would be able to log the call in this tool in the following manner. And then once we do that, we then test it that it works, and then monitor and report on it, audit it, and continue like that until we finish all the implementation. So that's the high-level steps for introducing service management into the organization. But there are common best practice set of steps that we can follow. For example, the first thing like I said, is understanding business IT service requirements. That's the first thing. We also want to ensure that IT department has a service catalog. Without a service catalog, then we can't do service management. Once we have a service catalog is a document that contains a list of IT services that the IT department is delivering. With the service catalog, and for each service, we need to understand the expectations of the users for each of these services. And that will enable us to create what we call a draft SLA with all the different users, internal and external users of such a service. In order to be able to honor or deliver to the SLAs, then we need to be able to create operational level agreements and underpinning contracts to support the agreement. Now, operational level agreements are done for internal or support teams, whereas underpinning contracts are done with external support teams, which we call suppliers. Once we do this, the next thing we do is we document the processes that and policies and procedures will be defined, documented. So what are those processes? For example, incident management process, we might need to document that, or problem management process, configuration management process, change management process, and we need to determine the order in which all these processes are documented. From best practice, usually one of the things that people do first is to try and ensure that we can manage the inflow of requests or issues that are coming to IT. So typically people will maybe implement or document or define processes to support how we manage issues or incidents. And then later on, you want to introduce a change management procedure to ensure that people don't just make changes to the IT infrastructure without due thought, without some form of authorization. Once we have done that, we now need to start to define roles and responsibilities for those that are going to be working on those processes going forward. We define KPIs that we are going to use to measure their performance and ensure that we can also generate reports to show the performance of those processes that we have implemented and of the entire service management practice itself. And training is provided as we go on, and then we must also ensure that continuous service improvement program exists, whereby we regularly identify or improvement opportunities, and then create a plan for implementing those improvement opportunities. So what are the common benefits for implementing service management? One of the important benefits is improving quality of service. And when you say this, you put yourself in the shoes of the user. For example, at times I call one of the major telecommunications companies to maybe lodge a complaint, and then you're on the phone with them for over 20-30 minutes, and the phone kept on telling you that, oh, you are so important to them, your call is important to them, but you need to hold on and you'll be answered by the next available agent. And you wait patiently, and then by the time it gets to somebody picks up the call, and then you tell them what you are trying to do, oh, maybe the agent now says, oh, sorry, you are in the wrong department. I can actually transfer you to the right department. And then you wait again. I mean, those are the kind of frustrations that users go through. Another example is that you log a call, and somebody on the service desk picks the call, and they are unable to resolve the call. But they've spent so much time with you and wasted your time. Or you also want to understand, why is this the case? That means there could be lack of training for those people on the service desk. So there is a high probability of meeting customer service expectations. There's enhanced customer satisfaction. We're able to better motivate people, including IT and non-IT staff. And these are other benefits. And there is usually a long-term financial savings, because it's meant to help us reduce the cost of service provisioning, in addition of controlling the rate of change to the IT infrastructure. I will not bore you with this slide. Pretty much it's just saying that when you are implementing service management, you need to identify the goals and objectives for each of these implementation, and map them out to see which one will help you to improve quality of services. So this process, so you are able to better understand the contributions of each processes to the delivery or improvement in quality of services. The next part is, I want to quickly go through an overview of the ISO 20000 international standard. So pretty much, what's a management system? A management system consists of the company's goals and objectives, the processes we use to do the work, and resources for conducting its business. And then when we want to, so for example, let's say you go into any of the McDonald's or Tim Hortons and so on. These businesses have a management system for serving the customers that come into the store every day. They have a management system. If they now want to standardize their management system to a particular international standard, for example, to ISO 9001, then we call that a management system standard. In case the organization, McDonald's, wants to standardize to more than one international standards, we could have them in form of what? An integrated what? Management standard. So in terms of ISO 20000, what are the contents of the standard? There are 12 parts, 12 publications. Part 1 is the most important publication, and it's called the Service Management System Requirements. It's the specification. It contains over 465 clauses that an IT department must ensure that they conform to. Part 2 provides a guidance which is called ISO IEC 2000-2. That's part 2. It provides a guidance on the application of service management systems, that is explaining how to work on part 1, basically. Part 3 provides us with a guidance on how we define scope and the applicability of ISO 20000 part 1. Part 4 defines the process reference model, and it continues till part 12, which is guidance on the relationship between ISO IEC 20000-1 2011 and its other service management frameworks such as CMMI. So what are the benefits of ISO 20000? Like I said, the most important benefit is improved quality of services, and the fact that your customers are happy that when they come into, let's say, a banking or for a financial institution, they're able to get whatever they've gone there to do within a timeline that is acceptable to them. And again, there are other benefits, such as one of those other benefits is that certification is now recognized internationally, and people now realize or recognize that you are delivering, let's say, a world-class kind of service. So how do we certify to ISO 20000-1? Background for this is that, according to ISO 20000 toolkit, it identified 10 concerns that IT directors face. One of such is aligning IS strategy with business strategy, meeting business and user needs, coping with change, and so on and so forth. And so in order to be able to address some of these areas, IT directors have decided to embrace service management to ensure that if we implement service management, it would remove some of our worries and make them go away to some extent. So some of the things leading to ISO 20000 implementation include increased regulation. There are some businesses that their regulators have told them that they must implement or certify to ISO 20000. A case in point is the business in Nigeria, is the financial institutions in Nigeria. The Central Bank of Nigeria, through its IT standards blueprint, has requested that every bank must implement service management. And so, and one of the things that they could use to see that they've done this is certifying to what? ISO 20000 part 1. Other reasons are also here, one of which is having competitive advantage. So what are the typical objectives for implementing ISO 20000? The primary objective is establishing a service management system standard, meaning a document containing objectives for delivering services within the organization. And that document would have metrics, would have processes and services that will be used to deliver that IT department is delivering to the business. And we could then decide to certify that document to the international standard, which is IS 20000 part 1. Other objectives include creating a service catalog, creating a service level agreement, or ensuring that we're able to provide faster resolutions to service requests, incidents, complaints, and problems, and so on and so forth. So what's the typical scope Usually, ISO 20000 Part 1 contains 9 clauses. And so the focus is to implement clauses 4, which is SMS general requirements, through to clause 5, which is design, development, transition of new and changed services, which is the center point. And then clause 6, service delivery processes, clause 7, relationship processes, clause 8, resolution processes, and clause 9, control processes. So it starts from users expressing their service requirements to the IT department, and IT taking these requirements and doing something to be able to provide services to those users. Those services in a way that it would help deliver value to these customers. So, what approach do we use for introducing or certifying people to ISO 20000? We use a combination of plan, do, check, act, and agile project management practices. So we plan everything we want to do. So, for example, we create 3 phases in planning: initiate project, conduct assessment, and prepare project plan. Those are the things we do in planning. And then in execution, those are the things we do for our phases 4 to 12. Meaning phase 4, we just try to address the shortcomings of phase 2, either through training and through other means. Phases 5 to 10 is where we prepare the SMS documents. And phase 11 is where we do the certification. And then we close the project in phase 12. Check and act is what we do to support the entire implementation. So this next slide just explains what we are doing in each of the phases. Phase 1 again, initiate project, and so on and so forth. So in phases 5 to 10, what do we do in that? What we typically do, which is what gives us the edge in this area, is that we conduct workshops with the typical process owners and managers and other stakeholders for that process, to gather requirements for the process to be designed. We do a design of the process and create the process documentation. We try and now configure the process using a service management tool. We might also create procedures to support that implementation. And because these things cannot be done apart from people implementing it, we have to reorganize people to be able to support the execution, implementation of these procedures. So in some of our ISO 20000 implementation, we look into the service desk, we look into the service management organization and say, do we have an effective service desk? If yes, what can be done to improve it? If no, how can we recreate the service desk so that people will not be bypassing service desk that has been established to be the single point of contact for all issues and all support issues for the IT department. The other thing we look at is the service management organization. We also look at this because without the service management organization, we can't maintain this SMS going forward. So we need to ensure that the right set of people are there to perform the roles that are required by the SMS post certification to the ISO 20000. And so once we look at the roles, we train people, and the training might be a basic training first, and then over the years we can add additional set of training. And then we pilot the implementation for all the clauses. And as we do this, we learn, review, and amend, and then execute the remaining part of the project plan. That's all we do. So in terms of certifying to ISO 20000, pretty much the way it happens is that we are not responsible for doing the certification audit. So we have to invite our partner like TCIC to come and help us certify the company that we are work for. And how do they do it? They will fill some application on the behalf of our client and then send it to TCIC or for them to assess what is needed and so on. And from that, they might do maybe a stage review or a documentation review before they come to site. And then when they come to site, that's when they will do stage 1 audit. And stage 1 audit is pretty much to look at documentation, or do we have all the documents created and so on, or what has been put in place, and to review the risk overall to say that what we have will be enough to deliver services internally and externally to the customers. And then they come with some audit conclusion for stage 1 audit. And if the conclusion is they are ready for stage 2, then they move on to stage 2 audit. And this is to cover all the requirements of the IS 20000 Part 1. And the conclusions can be, is either we find non-conformity, or there are no non-conformities, and just observation for improvements. If there are non-conformities, then the plan will be to try to address these non-conformities before the auditor leaves the site. But in case we are not able to address this non-conformity before they leave the site, then that's when there could be a follow-up assessment in future to say, have you done those things that you were meant to do? And if yes, how effective are these? And so from there, that is when the auditor can make a recommendation to issue the certificate. And then they go through APMG before, and with approval from them, the certificate is issued. But the certificates, and then every year they go through what we call the surveillance audit until the 3rd year, whereby we have to renew the certificate and check everything thoroughly. So that is the approach or the procedure for certifying to ISO 20000. So what are deliverables? These are pretty much the deliverables. They are the project documents we create, like project steering committee or project organization with clearly defined roles and responsibilities. We prepare project charter, we prepare project management plan, gap analysis report, service catalog, service level agreements, operational level agreements. We review existing contracts. We create process documentations for all the clauses from clause 5 to clause 9. We ensure that everyone is kept abreast and so on. In one of my implementations, one of the things we found was that the department was not customer facing or customer centric. We had to also include a service culture program to ensure that it's not just creating the process documentation, it's ensuring that the behavior or the attitude of people in IT change, and to realize that they are there to support the business and not the other way around. And that really worked out quite well. And in all our documentations, we also create what we call the project log, which will include rate and change log. So, and then we create the document called Service Management System Standard. And then after the certification audit and the recommendation by the auditor, the client receives their ISO 20000-1 certificate. And that brings me to the end of the slides for the implementing ITIL and certifying to ISO 20001. So this is the time we now want to receive questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Shoal. It was an amazing presentation. I really learned quite a bit and quite fascinated about the structure of getting certified and all the rigor that goes into it. Okay, so right now, anybody on the call who wishes to ask a question, please type the question into the questions window on your interface. So as you're logged into the webinar, you have a questions window. Please type questions in there. We will address them as they come up. So we have a question here. Shola, are there competing standards and certifications? If so, how does this one compare?
Well, thank you. So when we say that competing standards and certifications, the question will be, every framework has its own purpose. ITIL is to support service management practices, and so if we now want to look at other standards, what are those other standards? TOGAF will be one of those standards. TOGAF is to support enterprise architecture. So each of these certifications have a reason or a rationale I mean, there's a purpose for each certification. So for another example is project management has its own certification, PMP, or business analysis has its own certification, which is CBAB. So, but they are all to support themselves to deliver value to the customer in the long run. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Next question. What is the acceptance of ISO 20000 in the marketplace? Does it have support from major corporations?
Now, in the marketplace, it depends on which market we are talking about. In the financial institutions, for example, in Nigeria, it has a lot of support, even from the Central Bank of Nigeria, based on the IT standards blueprint. Now, internationally, maybe they've not, internationally, let's say in North America, in Canada, for example, we implement service management, but maybe not certified to ISO 20000. But in Asia, for example, a lot of certifications are done to ISO 20000 and to other international standards. So it really depends on the market. It's market specific.
Okay. Remember, everybody else, if you wish to type a question, please type it into the questions window and we will address it. Some people have asked, will they get the copy of the slides? Yes, we will send them out to everybody on this call. Next question. My organization has services and standards defined, but I don't think we focus on optimization. Is that step essential to success in ISO 20000 at the organizational level?
Obviously, yes. So one of the things that even without certifying, you don't need to go for ISO 20000 certification for you to identify improvements. So it's called, you monitor, you measure, you report on what is going on, the current state, and you identify improvement opportunities. That is the essence of the CSI publication of the ITIL standard or ITIL publication. So if you go through those steps, monitor, measure, create reports on the actual service level achievements, then you're able to identify, okay, what can we do to improve this area? Either to improve a particular process, or to improve a particular unit, or to improve the skill set of the people delivering those services. When you do that, that is when you can claim to be gradually improving the quality of services you are delivering to your business. Otherwise, you will remain static and you will always be firefighting throughout. You can't measure progress.
There's a follow-up question from the same person saying, our organization's not looking for certification. Rather, what I'm asking, sorry, there's a typo there. Rather, what I'm asking is, it seems we don't actually take the steps to optimize. We identify the problems, we finger point and blame, but no change ever happens. What can we do to improve this?
What can we do to improve this? It's more of governance. So it has to do with governance, it has to do with leadership of the organization. So it depends on how IT is seen by the organization. If IT support is entrenched by the organization and the company really wants to benefit, to get the value for delivering IT services, then IT has to be championed at the executive level, because that is the only way that you can then bring improvement opportunities and then implement those improvement opportunities, instead of just doing certifications for collecting the certificates alone.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Please type them into the questions window. I'm not seeing any. This is your last chance. We're getting close to the top of the hour. One last chance to enter any questions. Okay, thank you very much, Shola, for today's presentation. It was really helpful. We appreciate it. If anybody has any further questions, you can always email us offline and we can get to that. Shola's email address is oduko, O-D-U-K-O, oduko @procept.com. We'd love to hear from you. This is one in a series of webinars. As I said, we run these monthly. Stay tuned for next month's free webinars on interesting topics around project management, IT management, business analysis, and general leadership as well. Thank you very much, Shola.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Bye.